My name is Majid Raissi. I have a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Maryland. Actually, this is our electrical engineering department here, electrical and computer engineering department. Even then, my focus was on the problems related to communication networks. And after that, I was a postdoc, again, working on similar things, network protocols, things like that. And shortly after that, I joined the industry, which I have been working since then. And again, all that time, I have been working at different capacities in the networking industry, dealing with networks simulation at some point, network analysis, protocol analysis, network monitoring, control of the networks, a lot of different subjects. Obviously, I always want to share what I have learned both from the academia and the industry. So in this course, we are going to look at network security, but we look at network security in a holistic way. In a holistic way means that we're not going into really, I call it the trap of considering the network to be only the network infrastructure, be a bunch of routers and switches, and the security of network, meaning that we don't let anyone really, connecting to those or affecting them. The network nowadays, and that's the correct definition of the network, is the network components, network infrastructure, and network services, the services that are offered over that network. Usually nowadays we have this holistic view of network being everything that is needed for the network to provide the services. And usually that is part of all those servers, applications running on those servers, they are communicating with each other, multiple servers, storage, database, all that. Those are also considered part of the network. So we have this holistic look at the network, and we look at the security from that perspective. And that means we no longer limit ourselves to that very narrow part of the network security, just dealing with, let's say, configuring firewalls or things like that. There are some more difficult subjects in security that not every engineer has the knowledge of, and that's what we are trying to cover as well. Course description, it's an introduction to the diverse field of cryptography and network security. What is really the topic of network security as a whole? It's actually cryptography is part of it, is a very, very important part of it. If you want to understand how network security protocols work, we need to understand the cryptography behind it. Not from an academic theoretical point of view, there are different levels of understanding of the cryptography, of course. For this course, for this program in general, I skip most of the basic mathematics, just point to the ones that we need to just justify the properties of these cryptographic algorithms and just go over the properties. And from there, we jump to how protocols benefit from these cryptography techniques in almost all the security protocols. But we start with the principles of cryptography and review some common encryption standards. So like block ciphers, public key cryptography, and how they can be used to come up with additional like digital signature techniques or the MAC authentication or things like that, message authentication codes. And then also certificates, what is SSL certificate or TLS certificate, and the key management. Once we cover this, then we start looking at how higher level security protocols are built using these basic cryptography algorithms or techniques, which by themselves, they are standards too. They're not just algorithms. They're actually well-known standards. For example, when we talk about TLS as a transport layer security protocol, I don't want to start from TLS and just jumping into TLS and say what TLS is, what kind of handshake it has, and what properties it provides. I would rather first start from explaining those basic building blocks that TLS and many other protocols use. Once we cover those, once we know all those building blocks, how they work and where they come to use, TLS will be just a simple example of picking some of them and putting them together, packaging them as one transport layer security protocol. When we move to IPsec as a network layer security protocol, that will be an easy understanding, because when you look at the components of IPsec, then everything makes sense because we know all those components. So I like this approach of the building approach rather than just memorizing approach, because that helps us have a deeper understanding and a more long-term understanding of these protocols. And more importantly, 2 years from now, maybe there is a new protocol for security in a different layers or the same layer just replacing the previous protocol. We're not going to just jump to every protocol and memorize it. When we know these building blocks, even that new protocol will make sense as well. That's why fundamentals are important.